Hey there. Have you ever sat in silence only to find your mind racing with worries, regrets, or endless thoughts? In this video, we'll explore what happens when silence meets mindfulness, how these quiet moments can spark a deeper awakening within you. Is true stillness just about being quiet, or is it about truly being present? Stay with us for a moment to see if you've felt this inner chaos too, and let's discover how to find peace together. When silence meets mindfulness, the awakening truly begins. There are moments when you're sitting quietly, not saying a word yet. Inside your mind feels like a chaotic carnival, worries about the future, regrets from the past, unconscious comparisons, subtle self-criticism. And you find yourself wondering, aren't I being silent? So why do I still feel so drained? The answer lies in something deceptively simple, yet deeply subtle. Silence isn't just the absence of noise outside. It's the beginning of stillness inside. And to reach that stillness, you need a very special companion, mindfulness. Across many philosophical and spiritual traditions, from east to west, awakening never comes from silence or meditation alone. It arises in a very small yet incredibly vivid moment, the moment you are truly present in your experience, whether you're washing dishes, taking a walk, or simply breathing. For the Stoics, this wasn't some distant or mystical concept. It was an art of living, to live with full awareness of being alive. To live not for display, not to react, not to try and get it right, but simply to see clearly what's happening within and choose your response with intention. This piece is an invitation to return to yourself. No grand transformations, no reinventing who you are, just staying a little longer with yourself in the quiet, ordinary moments of everyday life. Because it is there, when silence meets mindfulness, that true awakening begins. Part 1. What is true mindfulness? What is inner silence? Let's begin with something simple, yet easily overlooked. Mindfulness is not the same as concentration. You can be staring at a screen for hours, fully focused, yet not truly present. You can be absorbed in scrolling, binge-watching, or working non-stop, and still be miles away from yourself. True mindfulness is different. It's not about how sharply you focus your mind, but about how gently you return to the present again and again. Even when you've drifted, even when you've zoned out, even when you've made mistakes. It's the soft discipline of noticing, I've wandered off again. Let me come back. Come back to where, not to a perfect version of yourself, not to a clean, organized, peaceful moment, but back to what is real right now, your body, your breath, your emotions, the room you're in, the ground beneath you. Mindfulness isn't loud. It doesn't need a timer or a cushion or a specific posture. It's already available in the mundane, in how you sip your coffee, how you breathe through traffic, how you respond when someone misunderstands you. It's the moment between impulse and action. It's the awareness that lets you pause. The Stoics, long before modern neuroscience or mindfulness apps, understood this deeply. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." To master yourself, you must first notice yourself. And to notice yourself, you must be still, at least on the inside. That brings us to inner silence. Not just the absence of sound, but the space between thoughts. The space where you no longer argue with yourself. Where you don't need to justify, analyze, or defend, just observe. And this inner stillness, paradoxically, doesn't arise from trying to shut your mind up. It arises when you listen to it without judgment. Marcus Aurelius in Meditations wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." That strength doesn't come from suppression. It comes from presence. From being there when your fear rises. From noticing the twinge of irritation before it becomes a reaction. From recognizing that your mind is not your enemy nor your master, it's just a constant storyteller. And like any good storyteller, it gets better when you stop trying to control it and start listening with compassion. Here's a simple truth: you don't need to quiet the mind. You just need to stop fueling it unconsciously. Every time you return your attention to the breath, the senses, the sensations in your body, without judging, fixing, or improving, you're practicing true mindfulness. You're inviting in that subtle, nourishing silence that lives underneath the noise. It may last just a few seconds, and that's okay. Mindfulness isn't measured in minutes, it's measured in moments. And the good news is, the more you return, the easier it becomes. Your brain starts to build new grooves, ones of awareness instead of reactivity, of softness instead of control. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Mindfulness allows you to see that distinction, to catch yourself in the loop of imagined threats and gentle self-harm, to step out of the mental storm and say, "This is just a thought. I don't have to follow it." So if you've been caught in your head lately, running in loops, overthinking, zoning out, don't judge yourself. That's part of being human. Just bring yourself back softly, kindly, and often. That simple act of noticing and returning is both an act of courage and of love. Because in that space where silence and mindfulness meet, you begin to wake up. Part 2. Why is mindfulness so important? In a world that moves at breakneck speed, where urgency is glorified and distraction is a default setting, mindfulness may seem underwhelming, too quiet, too slow, too simple to matter. But that's exactly why it's essential. When you're not mindful, you're not really living. You're reacting. You're jumping from one notification to the next one thought, to another one emotion, to the next, without ever pausing to ask, is this mine? Do I want to feel this? Do I choose this? Mindfulness gives you that pause. It gives you the breath between stimulus and response. The beat of silence where you can see things for what they are, not what your emotions or assumptions have made them out to be. The Stoics knew the value of this inner space. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And how can you respond wisely if you're not even present? When you're not mindful, you're at the mercy of everything around you. A driver cuts you off and your day is ruined. Someone gives you a funny look. You spiral into self-doubt. Your plans fall apart, so do you. But when you are mindful, something shifts. You begin to witness these same moments, but with space, with softness, with sovereignty. A traffic jam becomes an opportunity to observe your breath. A stressful conversation becomes a mirror for your triggers. A change of plans becomes a lesson in flexibility. Mindfulness doesn't erase your emotions. It gives them context. It allows you to feel without drowning, to observe without attaching, to act without overreacting. Seneca, another Stoic philosopher, reminds us, "He is most powerful who has power over himself." And that power doesn't come from control, it comes from awareness. You don't need to suppress your feelings, you just need to see them clearly before they drive the bus. In practical terms, mindfulness is what allows you to pause before sending that angry reply. Notice when you're spiraling into comparison on social media. Recognize that tightness in your chest as anxiety, not weakness. Take a breath before judging someone or yourself. It's the difference between living deliberately and being lived by habit. And the good news, you don't need to be perfect at it. You just need to practice, over and over again. Because mindfulness is not a fixed state, it's a muscle. And like any muscle, it strengthens through repetition, through small moments of return, through imperfect effort that's done with sincerity. So if today you found yourself distracted, reactive, anxious, or numb, don't worry. That's okay. That's the starting point. The important thing is that you noticed, and in that very moment of noticing, you were already mindful. That's the quiet miracle of this practice. It meets you exactly where you are. You don't have to be calm. You don't have to be wise. You don't even have to be consistent. You just have to be here. Because when you are here, truly here, something deep inside you begins to reawaken. A kind of quiet strength, a clarity that doesn't shout but holds firm, a presence that doesn't need to prove itself but changes everything it touches, and that the Stoics would say is the beginning of real freedom. Part 3. Silence as space. A quiet power. Silence often gets mistaken for emptiness, as if nothing is happening, as if it's a void waiting to be filled. But the deeper you go into real silence, not just the absence of sound, but the stillness that comes when you stop fighting every thought, chasing every distraction, or reacting to every pull, the more you realize silence isn't emptiness, it's space. And space is where clarity happens. We live in a culture that fears space. We fill it with noise, movement, information, urgency, anything to avoid sitting with the discomfort of being, of just being. But in the Stoic tradition, this space is sacred. It's the place where wisdom grows, not in the clamor of proving something, but in the quiet of observing without judgment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul. Retreat to this inner space often." That retreat isn't an escape, it's a return to the only place where you can actually see your life clearly inside. In the space that silence creates, your emotions no longer shout over one another. Your thoughts stop colliding like impatient commuters. You begin to notice subtly but unmistakably what's real and what's noise. That brief tightening in your chest before you speak. That momentary resistance before you agree to something you don't believe in. That flicker of intuition before you override it with logic or fear. Without silence, these signals get drowned out. But in silence, they surface and they guide. There's a strange paradox here. The quieter you become, the more you begin to hear. Not just the sounds around you, but the truth within you. Not just what people say, but what they mean. Not just what's happening, but why it matters. And you don't need hours of meditation or a retreat in the mountains to touch this. You can access it in the middle of your daily life. In the moment right before you answer a text. In the breath you take before reacting to criticism. In the pause before you reach for your phone out of habit. Those small moments, tiny and visible, unglamorous, are doorways to a different kind of strength. A groundedness that doesn't need to shout to be felt. The Stoics weren't after constant calm. They weren't trying to be untouched by life. They simply understood that without space there can be no choice. And without choice there can be no freedom. So if you find yourself surrounded by noise internally or externally, don't panic. Just stop, even for a moment. Notice the space between your thoughts, the space between your breaths. That's not nothing. That's where your real life is happening. And if your mind wanders, as it will gently bring it back, to your feet on the ground, to the sound of your breath, to the presence of your own body. That too is silence, not the silence of absence, but the silence of return. The kind that doesn't ask you to change, but simply to come home. In a world obsessed with doing this, returning to stillness, to awareness, to self, is an act of quiet rebellion. And in that rebellion lies a freedom more profound than noise could ever give you. Part 4. Practicing mindfulness in everyday life. Mindfulness doesn't have to be a big event. It's not about finding the perfect meditation cushion or setting aside an hour every morning in silence. It begins with something far more humble and far more accessible: attention. Not the dramatic world-stopping kind, just the quiet, consistent kind. The kind that shows up in the middle of the dishes, in traffic, in a sigh. The kind that helps you notice your life as it's happening, instead of only remembering it later in fragments. Start small. When you wake up tomorrow, instead of reaching for your phone, notice your breath. Notice the weight of your body on the bed. Notice that you've arrived in a new day, and this moment, this exact, unremarkable, precious moment, is already asking you to be present. Not for the sake of productivity, not to become better, just because presence is life. Everything else is commentary. When you eat, try doing it without a screen. Feel the texture of the food. Chew slowly. Notice what hunger feels like, what fullness feels like. Not to judge it, but to finally listen to a body that speaks quietly, but constantly. When someone speaks to you, really listen. Not to respond, not to fix them, just to understand, to be there, to give them the rarest of gifts, undivided attention. That's not just mindfulness, it's love in its purest form. And when the world feels overwhelming, when you catch yourself lost in the blur of tasks and thoughts and endless stimulation, pause. One breath is enough. Feel your feet on the floor, your hands in space. The sound in the room, return. Again and again, gently, kindly, without scolding yourself for drifting, because drifting is part of the practice. It's the coming back that matters. Epictetus once said, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Why? Because real change doesn't happen in the spotlight. It happens quietly, in moments nobody sees. When you choose awareness over autopilot, when you choose not to rush, when you remember that being alive isn't something that happens after you've finished everything. It's happening now, even in the middle of your to-do list. And if you forget all of this tomorrow, which you might, it's okay. You haven't failed. You're human. The point isn't to be perfect. The point is to return, as many times as it takes. Back to your breath, back to your body, back to this strange, beautiful, ordinary moment that keeps unfolding whether you're paying attention or not. But the moment you do pay attention, truly gently, without judgment, you wake up. And in that waking up, even if just for a few seconds, you remember this life, this breath, this you, is enough. Part 5. A gentle reminder to begin again. You don't need to become someone else. You don't need to retreat into the mountains or master a spiritual discipline before you're allowed to feel at peace. You just need to begin again and again in the middle of your very real, very human life. Begin with a single breath, a single pause, a single moment where you return to yourself. Maybe today you were scattered. Maybe your thoughts raced ahead. Maybe you forgot to listen, forgot to feel, forgot to be here. That's okay. The practice of mindfulness isn't about staying perfectly centered. It's about remembering and returning. Every time you come back, you strengthen something quiet and essential inside you, your capacity to live with intention. Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." The way we reclaim time isn't by trying to control everything. It's by truly inhabiting what's already here, by being awake to a sip of tea, to a breath in the morning light, to a silent walk with no destination but presence itself. Let the noise be there, it will always be there. The world is full of sound, distraction, urgency. But within that, you can carve a space of stillness, a space where your silence and your attention meet, where the practice becomes the life itself. So if this essay spoke to something quiet inside you, something that's been waiting for a while, share it. Not because it needs to go viral, but because maybe, just maybe, someone else is also waiting to come back home to themselves. And if you're ready to begin, not perfectly, not with a big declaration, but gently, then take one breath right now and feel it. You've already arrived. If this journey into Stoic honesty resonates with you, let us keep the conversation going. Like and share this content to spread the wisdom of Stoicism with others. Subscribe to Stoic Happens for more insights on living a courageous, authentic life. We would love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and share how honesty has shaped your path or what you are reflecting on today. Your perspective could inspire someone else in our community.